Here. Well, welcome and thank you everyone for coming out here tonight. Really appreciate everybody taking an hour of your time in the evening, because I know obviously everybody's time is precious, but just to give you guys a quick introduction, I know most of you guys know myself. I'm Erin Lindauer, owner of Transformation Fitness and Wellness. Tony and I own it together, and I'm really excited to give you this message today, but I'm also even more excited to introduce Kathy Slaughter. She is owner and CEO of Soaring Heart Counseling, and I started crafting this message and I'm like, you know what? I need her knowledge. And there's a lot of stuff that we were able to collaborate and put together, but I'd love for Kathy to kind of give you guys an introduction of who she is, what she does, and kind of why we thought she would be a good fit for this presentation.
Thank you. Like she said, I'm Kathy Slaughter. I was a client here up until pretty recently, because I just did the Skinny Jeans Challenge to get myself rebooted. I've worked in the mental health field for about 10 years. I've got a master's in social work from the University of Michigan. My expertise is in trauma, relationships, working with teenagers, and human sexuality. And so when Erin was like, I'm working on this thing about motivation and your mind and fear, I was like, that is so up my alley.
Yes.
So I was thrilled when she was like, do I collaborate?
Yes.
So you'll hear my pieces. And then I have, Soaring Heart Counseling is my practice. It's in the heart of Broadrickle, so not too far from here. And I am taking your client.
Perfect. Well, we're going to get right into this. So Kathy's going to get us started here.
All right. So if you want to flip to the second page of your worksheet, we're going to be working through pieces of the worksheet throughout the presentation. So right now, I just want you to focus on the very first question. Which or can someone read it for me?
Think of something in your life that frustrates you, something you want to change or
Okay. So I want you guys to just think of something. If you're a goal-oriented person like Erin and myself, it could be a goal that you're currently frustrated by, or if there's just something in your life that you're mulling over, thinking about changing, that works too. Just bring something in mind that you can think about as we're going through the presentation. So just go ahead and take a minute and jot some notes down if you wish. Looks like most of you guys have an idea in your mind at least. You can go ahead and keep jotting down notes. I'll let Erin start with
Yes.
first.
Absolutely. So a lot of this too, do not hesitate to like, hey, if something jumps in your mind, don't hesitate to say something. I am not that presenter that can't get her back in order. So if anything comes to mind, don't hesitate. But today we're really going to work through fear, motivation, change, and some of this stuff is uncomfortable. It is for me, and I know it is for a lot of other people. I'm going to read to you guys. This says, "He who is brave is free, and fear is a destroyer of greatness." Fear is something that's in all of us. I have it, everyone has it. And it's one of those things where we have to constantly work through it. And you guys know me, I'm pretty transparent and tell you guys probably way too much, but it's one of those things where I try to really bring in how this has directly applied to me. And there's been a lot of fear in my life and a lot of things that I've held even myself back. And I know that's true for other people. I know I'm not just special over here. And that, again, that's why this message was crafted for today. So fear is natural, or a little fear will motivate you. How many people have heard these kind of nuances that say, you know, fear is motivational, it builds character, you know, that kind of stuff. I read this and it really struck a string with me that no, this stuff isn't, you know, fear isn't natural. It doesn't build character. If anything, it destroys character. And so fear is literally the thief. It's the thief that's holding us back from doing a lot of really awesome things in our life. And attempting to conceal fear as a friend is like forcing that wolf to be your pet. Eventually, that wolf is going to eat you. And that's what fear is doing in a lot of people. And we may not really understand that we have this fear. I know that I personally didn't. And it wasn't until someone really brought it to my attention and they're like, hey, Erin, you've got a lot of things that's holding you back and I need you to really start working on this. I've told a lot of you guys that we personally have business coaches that help us stay on track, move us forward, because we're not just that good. It takes a lot of people to run a business and get you mentally where you need to be. And so I thought that was an interesting, soon that wolf will eat us alive. And that's what it's happening inside of us, is the fear constantly nags at us. And it goes back to the sole purpose of fear. What was fear for? It's to help us protect ourselves from harm. But there's a few things that go into this. And I'll use an example of the fear of public speaking. That a lot of people have, I know I sure did. I remember being told, this was probably a couple years into our business, Erin, you're gonna be on stage. I'm like, nope, no, I'm not. It's funny to look now, what's that now, 6 years later, and how many times we have been on stage, both Tony and I, and members of our team being on stage. But what's interesting is why people say they have a fear of speaking. It's not that you guys are gonna come hurt me, maybe. As long as I don't make anybody do burpees or things like that. But it's one of those things where physically that audience is not going to hurt me. But it's what we've put upstairs that we're not going to live up to other people's expectations. We're not going to deliver a good enough message. The person who hired us maybe isn't going to be pleased. It's all these expectations that we build, and what that really comes back to is our ego. And we're putting these things on us. And I've really learned, wow, what our ego does to really hold us back. So it isn't that someone's gonna hurt you when you're doing public speaking. It's what you've said to yourself a lot. Someone said this to me when I was training for one of my marathons. Erin, talk to yourself, don't listen to yourself. When I listen to myself, this hurts, this sucks, why am I doing this? Oh my God, I'm gonna die. A lot of those thoughts went through my head. A few other words probably went through too. But it was more, hey Erin, you got this. 1 foot, keep going, you're almost there. When you start talking to yourself, it's more positive. It's, you got this, you can do this, keep going. And you get that switch going, and it's an amazing thing. And that's what happens is, we will naturally go after what's comfortable. How many times have you been out in the studio lifting those weights and all of a sudden that trainer gets on you and says, lower or more weight? Anybody? Nobody? And it's one of those things that we will naturally go to what's easy. That's just human nature. We'll all do it, even myself. I know that I can easily bench 75, but I know that I can't get past that 95-pound sticking point, which, is something that we have to keep working towards. So our bodies will naturally, and it's the same way with our mind, will continue to go back to what's easier for us to do. And it's really getting past our own egos. And I know that kind of sounds funny to say your ego, but that is what it is. So what does fear cost us? Well, you get anxiety, you get paralyzed, you get frazzled. I mean, this happens to people, right? I mean, I'm not the only person out here.
Paralyzed is mine.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
That kind of I'm not gonna do anything, kind of sit back? Yeah, it's one of the things that we in this society have amazing people in this world. Everyone here in this room has a purpose. If you were at my Soul Purpose and Power Hour presentation, we really talked about everybody has a purpose here on earth. You may not know what it is, and it may take some time, but we all have a reason we're here. And we're helping people, or we're doing things, and it takes time to figure that out, but we constantly hold ourselves back from doing the things because we're scared. Well, what if I don't fit that picture perfect mold? Or what, anything. We can put all kinds of things, and that's literally just that fear coming back. And again, we'll keep taking that easy path in life because it is easier. Because as soon as you decide to change careers, what happens? It's hard. You know, I sat in a cube farm selling, I know more about these electrical parts than anybody should know. I worked at GE, and I sat there in that cube farm, and I went against the grain. Everybody else was going out after work, having drinks. It was kind of one of the things you had to do to advance in your position. You needed to rub elbows, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get there, but I was coming home and I was training clients because I had a goal of creating this business and doing this. Tony was in our business full time training clients, and then I would come home after my 8 to 5 and train clients, and I knew that's where my sole purpose was. I just, at the time, it was hard because it would have been way easier to just go have drinks. But I knew, hey guys, sorry, I gotta go. You know, it's 5:01, I'm skating down here to get here by a 5:30 client, shove some food in my throat, change clothes, you know, and make it happen. But I want you guys to know there is a purpose for every person here in this room, and you were created for something, and we have to figure out what that is. But don't let this hold you back from what that greatness is. And no matter what obstacles and barriers, they're just things to check off the list that you got to get past. So we'll talk more into that. But this I'm going to read to you, Master of Impulses. A great maturity opens in the human psyche when we accept that we can control our impulses by conditioning our thoughts, and that we are alone are responsible for our emotions and the reactions in life. That stuff's pretty deep. I had to read it, underline it, and kind of read it again. But we're in control. How many times do we feel like we're not in control? I constantly feel like I'm not in control. I think I should wake up and become a commercial banker because they all, it's just a process that is baffling to me, but it's one of these things that we are in control of our destiny and where we go. You are in control of your goals out in the gym. You're in control. And you guys realize that, right? It's the things that we do every single day, though, that add up. And obviously it's easy to talk about the gym and weight loss and those kinds of goals, but there's also goals of life and career and finances and spirituality that you have to keep checking things off the list. And sometimes it is that day-to-day goals that you have to set. Sometimes we can't think 1 year. So this is something that is not easy. And Kathy's going to help us understand this. And things that really are hard is fear wins or freedom wins. So something that I've done a lot of reading and understanding is something called bound nature versus free nature. Most of us live every single day in bound nature. And how you know that is being upset, being defensive. That's a really quick one. And when you start really learning what you do, and when you get real uptight over something, and when you step back and go, wow, that's really not that big of a deal. I said it to Tony. I don't know what it was that tipped me off, but I was like, I am in bound nature, watch out. And so he's being the best he can be, and he comes near me, and I'm one of these no, get away from me, and he's coming near me, and bless his heart, he just wraps his arms around me, bear hugs me really hard, but you're pissed, you're not happy right now, and all of a sudden he goes and hugs you, but it made me laugh, and I got out of it really quick. So I want you guys to really start listening, though, to people. When all of a sudden the conversation gets tense or that person gets fired up and you're kind of like, oh, this is not a big deal, that's bound nature.
Erin's going to talk about what the antidote to fear is and how we actually get the changes we want.
So first we're gonna start with this victimhood, and I don't want this to come across that I'm being flippant or, I'm not quite sure what the other word would be, but we do play the victim card a lot as a society. And it's a very tough one because everything that happens to us in our life, or the way we react, I should say, is more of our choice. You know, we can choose to wallow in sadness and be upset, to do the things that we do that behind closed doors no one knows about, but we have the choice. And motivation is not an impulse, it is intention. So motivation is not tangible. We can't touch it, we can't see it, we can't smell it. It's pretty mysterious. So what motivates you is going to be totally different than what motivates somebody else. And so this is an awesome quote. It says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people together to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. So it goes back to that vision, right? It's really painting the vision. And I know a lot of you guys work on teams, you work with other people, and this also can go to your own life. And it's having that vision, where do I want to go? It's not all the work and day to day, because you'll get through that stuff. Some of it's fun, some of it's not. But that vision and painting that, I can't tell you how important that is. Because one day you're going to wake up and go, okay, now what? Life just passed you by. Don't let that happen. That's why you're here tonight. That's why you do these things, to continue to get the brain going and have vision. So 2 dominant things. It's, again, we've been talking about it, freedom or fear. This is, what's interesting is when you get freedom, that's when you got through the struggle and you grew as a person. Fear is when you're staying right here. It's okay, I don't need to reach for the stars, I don't need to do anything else in my life, I'm cool. You've got so much talent, you've got so much to you that you don't even know. I mean, a lot of us don't even know until sometimes people just say, hey, you should be doing X. Like, come on guys. And it took that for me, because, I'm a girl from country town, small farm, like, never in my wildest dreams did I know I'd be doing this. I really had no clue. And if it wasn't honestly for Tony pushing and saying, hey, we need to do this. I was training people out of the back of my car. I mean, it was awesome. I had a nice stepper, the block, all that good stuff, and I went to people's homes and trained them, and, I thought that was a cool gig. But, then you got other people that come into your life and say, well, what about this? It's uncomfortable, it got scary, it's still scary, a lot of times. But there's 2 things that happen here. When you've got freedom, this means you've got reasons why. This goes back to that power hour where we talked about what is your sole purpose, what is your why. And this supports your freedom, and this is when you advance. This is when you move on in life. Fear is when you just don't have big enough reasons to take action. And that's okay. Sometimes in your life, you've got to get through that point. It's gonna happen to all of us where we kind of sit here and we are fine. It's not, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it is quote unquote easy.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. It's a great way to put it. But the problem is though, you stay right here. You may think and say you want to go elsewhere, but you're not doing the things to go there. And that is okay. But then you gotta jump and make that next step. So this is a fun one, the mother of motivation. Again, going back to the why. Motive means to take action, that kind of stuff. If we are unclear or uncommitted, motivation will absolutely be low. If we are clear and committed, we feel high levels of motivation. And the last piece there says it's all choice. So this is all you. This is your life. You can do really what you want to do with it. But I really want Kathy to tell us why this is so hard. Why is it? Because it sounds easy, right?
that.
Why is it so hard, Kathy?
Obviously it is, because there's so many of us sitting here this evening to listen to an hour of having lots of these problems and these challenges. And so it goes back to choice, like Erin said, and having that clear why. This was something that was made really, really clear to me early in my career. I was in a training and we were talking about motivational interviewing, which is an entire therapeutic process that's built around helping people get to their why. And at that particular moment, we were talking about what's a change that I wanted to make. And I was like, well, I want to change my weight. At that point, I was 50 pounds overweight. I knew it was bad, but I was also working 2 jobs to keep my husband's business afloat. And we just moved, and finances were tight, and there were a whole host of other things going on in my life. And the trainer looked at me and was like, well, why do you want to make this change? And I'm like, well, I know I should be healthier. She's like, okay, that's not good enough. Why do you want to make this? Why do you think you should change? Why do you think you should lose weight? Well, my knees are really crappy, and carrying around this extra weight can't be helping that. That's not good enough reason. What would it really take you? What would it take for you to really plunge to try and lose this weight? And I was like, honestly, at this point, I would have to have a medical professional tell me that there was a health risk on the line. I would have to be, lose weight now or you're gonna be a diabetic. It would have to be, lose weight now or you're gonna need knee surgery. Like, those are the stakes that I'm gonna meet in order to actually try and lose this weight. And she said, okay, you're not there yet. This conversation is over. And so what I ended up realizing was kind of useful. I had enough on my plate. It was okay to stay in the comfort zone. And so it was actually a really useful exercise because it helped me see that I didn't have an adequate why yet. And I was able to let go of worrying about it and fussing about it and having that like little voice in the back of my head that's like, you know, you should get to the gym. I was able to just let it go for a while. And it turned out that that was absolutely the right thing to do because that was about 2 years before I met Erin. And I had enough on my plate. So I want to share with you guys the theoretical model that underlies that motivational interviewing concept that is such a powerful intervention. Because it is something that we can all use, and I think for me, sometimes when I'm talking about something like motivation, that like Erin said, is kind of mysterious, it's intangible, you can't touch it, taste it, feel it. It really helps to get it clear in my head what's going on. So I really like things like this because it makes it possible to think things through more clearly. So this stages of change model was developed about 20 years ago by a couple of researchers who were looking at people with addiction problems and saying, well, why can't these people with addiction problems change and get clean and stay clean? So that was the answer they were trying to solve. And so what they came up with is roughly these 5 stages. There's different durations of it. But we all start out here. No, not me. So this is pre-contemplation. This is when someone says, hey, you should change this. And you go, you must be joking. I don't have a drinking problem. I don't need to lose weight. I don't need to stop spending money. You know, whatever the issue is, we are not willing to entertain the idea of change yet. We're just not there. So no, not me is where you start. The next step to making change is, well, maybe. This is called contemplation. This is when we start to toy with the idea that maybe we could make a change. Might be worthwhile. What would it look like if I made that change? Do I really want that change? I don't know, that's a lot of work. So it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of fence sitting. It's the second part of wanting to make change. This is often when seeing a therapist can be useful, because they can help you work through that ambiguity and help you kind of sort out what is and isn't working for you, or what is and isn't calling to you at that point in your life. So then the next step is preparation. You move from step 2 to 3 once you've made the decision to make the change, right? You guys all following? So by the time we get to preparation, we know we want to make the change, but we're not sure how we're going to get there yet. So this is the okay, so now what stage of change. And that's when you start researching maybe a new diet plan, or you pick up the phone and call Erin because your husband just got her BMI. Just how I got involved. Or you might start looking at like, what would I need to do for childcare arrangements so I can go to the gym in the evening. Those kinds of preparation tasks help us get ready to make the change. And this is a stage that I find a lot of people, especially like the overachiever types, we tend to skip it. We tend to go straight from I want to make this change to I am making this change tomorrow. And that is not a great strategy because without enough preparation, even if you have really strong motivation, you might still slip because you're going to hit a hurdle that you didn't see coming. So the preparation stage is actually a really important one that a lot of folks won't blow by. And then number 4 is action. That's okay, let's do this. Let's make this change. Let's do something different. Let's join TFW. Let's go to the gym. Let's start keeping a budget. Let's change how we're cooking. The actual change is what happens at stage 4. And then stage 5 is maintenance. The idea is that after 30 to 40 days of making that change, you'll get to a place where you can kind of maintain it. You're not staying on top of everything and really bearing down on the change anymore. It's become kind of your new normal. So the other thing that I find useful with this model is thinking about where people tend to fall short. So I talked about how sometimes people don't do enough preparation, so they get into the action mode and they hit a hurdle that they didn't expect and crash. Well, this is also where mindset comes into play, because then the question is, what do you do? If you crash, you go all the way back to no, not me, not a change worth making. A lot of people do. Or do you go back to, oh, well, my preparation wasn't good enough. Let's go back and plan and try again. Or do you go back to, well, maybe this will work. That's also kind of a bad place. So your mindset can also help you make sure that when you do slip as you're trying to make change, you don't fall all the way back to the beginning. You say, okay, I can get up and I can try again. Because the other place we tend to falter is once we've made the change and starting to feel pretty good, we're starting to get pretty comfortable, it can be real easy to get a little lazy and you stop doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing and you gradually just kind of spiral back to what the status quo used to be. Has that happened to anyone else besides me? Okay. So again, then the question is mindset. Is your why strong enough to get you back into preparation and action again, or do you end up going all the way back to the beginning? Makes sense? So the real key is if you're trying to make a change and you feel like you're just running into a brick wall, look at, is your why strong enough? And is your plan thorough enough? So I'm going to bring you guys back to the worksheet. And as you might guess, the next question is about your why. So when you think about the change and the frustration that you started with, why do you want to change it? What's your why? I had surgery on both my knees. My knees were in really bad shape. I literally couldn't squat when I met Tony. He was like, okay, squat, and I was like, okay. That was all I could do. No joke. And so I had a really big hurdle to overcome. I needed a really big why to get to that point. And I had decided that my weight was healthy as long as it didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. So I weighed 220 pounds, and I was okay with it, because I could do what I wanted to do, no big deal. Well, I decided to do a yoga challenge that I had successfully completed 7 years before. And on day 2, my right knee said, nope, we're done. And it wasn't like sit and breathe for a while and get back into the flow. No. My right knee was in pain, it was unhappy, we were finished. So it's like, well, I can't do what I want to do anymore. Now what? And that was when I hit my why. And that was when I met Erin. Because I had reached the point that I was just like, yeah, no, this hurdle, these knees are not stopping me anymore. So.
And they don't.
No, they don't. No, they do not.
Well, they have more carbs.
Right? So where do people get stuck? This is another place that I think is really important to look at. Fear of failure is huge, absolutely huge. It's risky to say, I'm going to do this thing, and then if you fall short, what happens? Especially for those of us who grew up with super critical parents, fear of failure can be absolutely crippling. Another concept which is kind of similar, but a little bit different, is one that I came across just a few months ago, is the idea of upper limits. That is this idea that each of us has a concept of how successful we can be. And so when we start to go past what our self-image says we can accomplish, we undermine ourselves. Because there's part of us that says you can't go further than this point. So as I got into being self-employed and working on my own business, I ran into a lot of upper limit problems, like, oh, my life can't be this good. What disaster is coming? That kind of thinking. And then finally, I think the one that we all fall prey to on a daily basis is what I like to call autopilot. It's the fact that we're just not present in the moment as we're going through our lives. So you go to the grocery store, and you take the same old route you'll always take down through all the snack food aisles and past all the soda pop, even though you know you should be eating your proteins and your veggies. Those kinds of habits can really sneak up on us and really undermine the changes we're trying to make because we're just not staying conscious. So finally, it is worth saying not everyone can really change and control their moods as well as everyone else. There are those of us who have really serious mental health challenges that do need therapy or do need medication, and that may always limit your ability to achieve your goals. Most of us, that's not the case. We just have bad mental habits, we have ways of thinking that aren't serving us, we have contexts that aren't working for us. Either column that you fall in, therapy is still useful. You don't actually have to have a full-fledged mental health diagnosis for therapy to be of assistance. The quote that Erin shared way back at the beginning that talked about how you can control your thoughts, and your thoughts control your behaviors, and that controls your life. That premise is why we say talk therapy works. So it is not always easy to implement these things.
So what we're gonna kind of close out tonight with are a couple more things, and this one is a big deal. You get to choose your mind. This has been a big epiphany for myself. And I have to tell you, and I'll tell you here, a story of my mom, my dad, my grandpa. I am a product of them, and Tony will tell me all the time, oh my goodness, you're just like your mom and dad. And they live in bound nature. The world is gonna get them. You know, the sun is not gonna shine tomorrow, and it's very difficult right now. My mom and dad are going through a lot. My dad's an only child, and my grandfather is 92. He's in the nursing home. He has an 8mm kidney stone that they should be taking tomorrow. But needless to say, he's in pain. And when you're in pain, you're not a happy person. And I don't know why, but my dad likes to pick at Grandpa. And it's like, Dad, stop it. Because then, you know, they get in that nice father-son banter. And, you know, if you've taken care of your parents, here as the granddaughter child watching this, I'm like, Dad, stop. You're choosing this right now. And what will be interesting is you guys start noticing this when you're out in your day-to-day and you start seeing people just wound up over something. I mean, I'm guilty as charged. I mean, it's something where I've really had to step back and say, this is my choice. Every day I wake up, I get to decide. I could waller in, this is so hard, why me, oh my gosh. You know, and I'm sure from the outside looking in, everything looks perfect, it's fine, you don't struggle, you know, what's your problem? And no one is lucky. And happiness is a result of thought, not impulse. Every day I get to choose. Am I gonna get up? Am I gonna go work out? Am I gonna be happy? Am I gonna do a good job? Am I gonna eat well? Every day, it's the same cycle, wash, rinse, repeat. And it's our choice how we live. And it literally, and I wrote this, you know, can it be so simple? Because I've been sitting back looking at these last 8 years of business and just really trying to take it all in. And what was challenging now is no longer. And what was a hurdle then is funny now. And I'm just like, whoa. But time is really what's proven this. But I wish I would have started implementing the things that I've been doing now. Because the things that I've been doing now is really starting this sustained motivation that I have every single day. Goals are really important for people, but they can also be very hurtful for some people.
It's really important to set your goals in a way that helps keep your motivation going. So I come from a family of super overachievers, no one's surprised. And so my family was set these big lofty goals, but then when you fall short on them, that stops your motivation because it's like, well, I said I was going to do X and I only accomplished Y. And some of the things that's really helped me keep things going is I set bite-sized goals. You know, if I say I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week and I make it 3 or 4, I hit like 80% of the goal, that for me is worth celebrating. That is a good enough performance towards my goals. And so I've really gotten more comfortable if the first goal that comes to mind seems too easy, but is actually going to be a change, that's the goal I stick with, so I can meet that goal and set another one, rather than shoot for the moon and end up feeling terrible when I don't get there.
And it'd be a fair assessment to say everybody's gonna be just a touch different on this. Because with a lot of our clients, we do set 6-week goals. And maybe that's not appropriate. Maybe it needs to be a daily goal. That, you know, every day I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I know for me personally, it's been 1 year, 3 year, 5 year drilled in my head. And right now, I don't know what 5 year is. 5 year was this building. Now I'm just kind of like, okay, now what? Make a bigger one? Just kidding, Cody. We're not getting the demo. But, so kind of to go back to these goals, you've got to figure out what motivates you, because setting these goals every single day can be what's better for you. And it may be something as simple as, I'm gonna do X. I'm gonna eat well all day today. Yes or no, check. Tomorrow, I'm going to do it again. I'm gonna eat well, yes or no, check. And that's that goal for you. But it could also be 6 months. It could be, you know, something that takes a little bit more time. One thing that I wanted to tell you guys about is this journaling thing. It's not new. It's been around for a long time. And I got introduced to it by our coach. And she said, Erin, I really want you to start journaling. And I'm like, what? What do you want me to journal? I'm like, you don't want to know what's going through here most days. And she's like, no, seriously, I need you to journal. And I wanted you to send it to me. And I was like, okay. So I did it a couple times sporadically here and there, and I just was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna think I'm the biggest whiner on the planet, you know, woe is me stuff. But then I was real sporadic, and she said, Erin, seriously, commit. Just commit and do this. And I'm like, man, she's calling me out. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I've consistently done it now. It's almost been 4 weeks of every single day, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes I journal 3 times a day. Those are really rough days. But what's interesting about it is some days they're this long. Some days they're this long. They're still great no matter what, no matter how long I write. And it's anything. It's whatever's on my mind. It's whatever we've been dealing with, or it's things that I'm trying to do, or things that are holding me back, or things that I'm scared about, or whatever. And typically I get no comments. The days that I do get a comment back of, are you okay? I'm like, oh man, what did I write? But what's cool about that is by that afternoon, it's gone. It's out of my head. I got it out on paper, well, digital, but I got it out. And there's something that's been very freeing. There's a lot of empty space now that I can think clearer. So if you haven't tried it, I use an app on my iPad, because it would take me forever to write, and plus my handwriting is really bad. But typing, I can get things out really fast, and sometimes it's choppy, but it's crazy how that sets my day, that it's like, okay, that's out there, it's done, it's out to the universe. But I don't know, I felt really compelled after been doing this for a certain amount of time that, man, it might help one person in this room, and that's worth it to me. And that's why I share it, because there's a lot of things going on upstairs in all of us. I'm not the only crazy one here. I mean that lightly. But and it is one of those things. And I will read to you guys, this is where most people fail, because we get distracted. I was getting distracted a lot of times in writing this journal. The other thing is visualizing. We actually have one class called sports psychology in our major of exercise science. I'm sure it's still in there, but one class that talks about the psychology of sport. And a lot of what we talked about was visualizing what you're doing out on the field. But it also can apply what you're doing in the gym, what you're doing in life, how you walk, how you talk to people. There's so much to be said about sitting in stillness and just visualizing what you're going to do, and visualizing yourself winning, because we're all winners. We all win at life. It's just the steps that we gotta do. And it's just like, you know, doing that daggone bench press today. You know, I'm sitting there in my head, I got this. You know, you see yourself come down and you see yourself push it all the way back up. Those are things that I can't tell you when you can really get clear in the head, because that's why I didn't get that bench. It's not that I'm not strong enough. I know it's all right here. And that's so frustrating for someone who's such a hard driver to look at this weight going, this is really nothing. This is not that big of a deal. But it's that own barrier. So use that visualization to really help you push past things. And accountability, again, that's a lot of what our system preaches here. And it's gonna be hard work, 100% hard work. But I want Kathy to kind of close us out with actually what is happening upstairs, because that's what she specializes in.
Yeah, this is another one of my favorite things that I learned that helps me stop being so hard on myself. So, quick neurology 101 lesson, right? Your brain is made up of these neurons that send chemical messages back and forth to each other across these long tentacles called synapses. And the phrase we use in the field is what fires together wires together. So when we have an experience, you know, you eat a piece of chocolate, and all the neurons that are associated with processing the taste of that chocolate and the pleasure in the chocolate, they all fire at the same time. And so the more chocolate you eat, the more they all fire at the same time, the more they all wire together. So over time, the things that we repeatedly do actually neurologically make our brain do it faster, more efficiently, better, stronger, quicker next time. So next slide. Next slide. So what happens is over time, those old habits, those things we've done forever, become the neurological equivalent of 465. It's that kind of volume, it's that kind of throughput. It's a huge, big fat neural connection that is designed to make you go home every day and eat a bag of chocolate chip cookies if you've been doing that for years, or whatever your habits might be. So when we say we're going to do something different, unlike a computer, we cannot rewrite our neurology. What we have to do is we have to get off of 465 and take the new country road. And we have to do that repeatedly, until this country road becomes a 2-lane divided highway and 465 starts to degrade. Neurologically, that's what's happening. You can't just step in and like move all those neural networks around. You have to stop the old habit long enough, that neural network fades, and you have to choose the new behavior long enough that that new neural network gets stronger. And that's part of why taking change is a lengthy process. And all those little successes on a neurological scientific level matter so much. So it's not that time when you're around 465 and you just take it off and you go home and you eat that bag of chocolate chip cookies that matters. It's what you do tomorrow. Tomorrow when you get home from work, do you take the exit off of 465 and do something different? Do you take the dog for a walk? Do you say hello to your kids? That's what creates that new neural pathway that gives you the behavior change that you want. But when you're struggling and you feel like you're slipping a lot and you're just not getting there, remember that our brains, as amazing as they are sometimes wired in ways that make what we want for ourselves really hard to achieve. So don't beat yourself up about it. Just try again tomorrow. Alright. So the last piece that I want you guys to think about is what, if anything, from this presentation are you going to change? Take a look at your why. Is your why strong enough? Are you not there yet? Do you need something else in your life to happen that makes you thirsty for the change that you think you need? Is there preparation that you need to do? I know when I left DFW back in April, after losing 50 pounds and running 2 triathlons, thank you, Adam, I thought I had an adequate plan to go back to working out on my own and that I would be okay. Turned out I didn't. Luckily, it wasn't a terrible plan. I didn't actually gain any weight back. But my body fat percentage changed, and I could tell from the way I felt. So I came back and did Skinny Jeans Challenge, lost another 1% of body fat, but it also gave me a chance to make a better plan. This time around, we're 2 months out, and I'm still making it to the gym 4 out of 5 days a week, which I did not pull off last time. So it's really important to look at those different pieces. So the last question that we have on the worksheet is, what do you want to do differently? If anything. Tonight's presentation may have shown you, like I learned way back in that training, that your why is not strong enough yet. And that's cool. Now you know. Carry on with whatever else is pressing in your face tomorrow. No big deal. That why will get there eventually. Or if your why is not strong enough and you really want this change right now and you think you can do it, go find a better why. Talk to a friend, look stuff up online, figure out what it'll take for you to get there. And if you try and get there and you're still flailing and you're thoughts just aren't working for you and you can't get your mindset to where it needs to be, ask for backup. I think accountability is huge. I am a very relationship-oriented person. Accountability for me is the #1 biggest thing that keeps me going. I post my workouts on Facebook because that's what keeps me going. People liking and commenting all the time. It's a form of accountability. Adam, when I was training for the triathlons, every workout that I would see him, he'd be like, so Kathy, how's that training going? And I knew that every day when I was like, I really don't want to go running because I really hate running. So accountability has been a really useful tool for me. So that's another piece you might want to look at. If this is a change that you're struggling with making, who can you partner up with? Can you become a TFW client? Is there someone else in your life that you could use as a cooking partner? Is there someone at work who will check in with you when you first get to the office and be like, hey, did you go to the gym this morning? You know, look for those kinds of things that can help you get where you want to go. Because you can get there, I promise.
They don't have to be a friend. Sometimes someone who's not a friend is better at keeping you accountable.
Absolutely.
We may look nice, but we put mean pants on them.
Oh, yeah. And if you want a therapist, you will get in your face.
I highly recommend having coaches and people in your life. And, you know, I hope there was a lot of good, tangible takeaways and things that you can kind of implement or maybe mull over. And if you have questions, don't hesitate. Kathy's contact information is on there, and also you guys know how to get a hold of me. Just let me know if you got things on your mind, because this is a deep content. I know it's getting late here, but we just appreciate you guys taking the time today, and just really hope you can take it away some stuff to really get you